I didn't want to leave. I was sort of like the de facto mayor of my street. I've gotten roads paved and trees planted and benches and stuff put in.
Why did you move to Colorado?
The main reason that we moved was to protect our children.
One of my big things in the marijuana world is that I don't feel the need to hide, and I never have.
You don't have children.
Do you consider yourself a cannabis refugee?
Absolutely. Well, my name is Diane Fornbacher, and I am a cannabis activist.
Why did you move to Colorado?
Well, it's multifaceted, but primarily it was because I needed to protect my children from Child Protective Services in a state where cannabis isn't legal.
Diane Fornbacher is an activist, a mother, and a marijuana migrant.
France is my main competitor.
A few years back, my son mentioned hemp as a viable resource during Earth Day in school, and when he said hemp, they didn't really understand what he meant, so they asked him to clarify, and he said, it's like marijuana, but you can't get high.
Diane was living in New Jersey when Child Protective Services were sent to her home. New Jersey is a state that currently allows for the medical use of marijuana. But even so, under its current leadership, cannabis is not highly regarded.
I don't care about the tax money that may come from it, and I don't care, quite frankly, that people think it's inevitable. It's not inevitable here. I'm not going to permit it, never, as long as I'm governor.
Just last December, the New Jersey Appeals Court ruled that a verbal admission about possible cannabis use was not sufficient evidence for a child's removal from the home. But this wasn't the case when Diane lived there.
Bells dig into snow.
Yep.
Diane also advocated for parents who had found themselves in the same situation. She's been a leader in the marijuana movement for some time now. It was a series of traumatic events that led her into advocacy. I don't know enough about her to know if I feel.
I've begun to try to think about life without PTSD.
Diane Fornbacher suffers from complex post-traumatic stress disorder. She didn't endure just one occurrence, but several instances of abuse.
I never told my mother about this, but my stepdad was sexually abusing me, and I really didn't know what to say to her because I didn't really know what to make of it.
It wasn't one type of abuse, but varied sexual, physical, and psychological events. In New Jersey, PTSD is not a condition that qualifies a patient for access to medical marijuana.
This is a person I loved as my father, that I grew up with since I was, 5 or 6, and I'd wake up from a nap and, he'd be, trying to touch around my shirt, and I never said anything to my mom, but she figured it out. And one day she just, shot him full of holes and then killed herself.
After the deaths of her mother and stepfather, Diane moved around from one abusive environment to the next. It wasn't until she was in college that Diane discovered marijuana could help treat her symptoms.
This is a tincture that my friend Christy makes for me. She knows it really helps me deal and manage with some PTSD symptoms.
Could you make the case that you're actually a better mom after you use cannabis, for you?
Well, the fact that it helps me manage my PTSD symptoms makes me more present for my children.
Diane isn't alone in the belief that marijuana can be used to treat PTSD. 9 states currently recognize it as a qualifying condition. 23 states and Washington, D.C. allow for the use of medical marijuana in general. And even the number of doctors who favor prescribing cannabis is on the rise. According to a WebMD poll, 69% of doctors say marijuana can help with certain treatments and conditions. 67% say it should be a medical option for patients, and 56% support making it legal nationwide. New Jersey was lagging behind the trend, and Diane couldn't risk losing her children any longer.
I didn't want to leave, but in my travels and after that happened, my husband and I started taking some trips to places we thought we might have the freedom of cannabis.
Diane tried California. She stopped off in Oregon. She even thought Washington State could be the right fit. But it was Highlands Ranch, Colorado, a place almost 2,000 miles from her home, where she would find the safety she needed.
Number one, it's just really beautiful, and it's affordable.
Right.
and there's legal cannabis here. It's really accessible, and we can grow it in our closets here.
Now that we live in Colorado, we can grow. So
Okay.
we're going to exercise that, right?
Wow, it's pretty exciting, huh?
It is, and it's, you know, I actually enjoyed the whole process.
Diane's just one of tens of thousands who have flocked to Colorado thanks to the pot boom. More than 36,000 people moved to Colorado in 2013. That's 8,000 more than the year before. Now Diane is living a more stress-free life in a state where she can recreationally buy what she needs.
The longer I live here, the more I found that some parents are really glad to have somebody like me around, because they can't, even in Colorado, be out as much as I've been out.
She's also furthering her fight for what she calls a more compassionate and sensible world. Diane is the executive editor of Ladybud magazine, a women's lifestyle publication focused on activism specific to drug war reform and other socially progressive issues.
What makes me angriest is that people and families are being broken apart for something that's really helpful.
We can't be certain the tide won't turn on marijuana legalization in the future. But for one woman, right now, legal pot has made all the difference.
Would you say marijuana has saved your life?
Yeah, it saved people's lives around me too.
I'm Ryan Nurse in Highlands Ranch, Colorado, and this is Fusion.